One of the most radical things a person can do inside an oppressive system is refuse to disappear. Welcome back to the Revolution Resolution. I'm Malaika Tubbs. Over the last several episodes, we've been talking about what happens when people challenge the hierarchy. We explored how systems punish solidarity, how they punish truth-telling, how they rely on fear, humiliation, and consequences to keep people inside the roles assigned to them. And today, I want to stay with that truth a little longer. Because before we move into conversations about how we live differently, we must understand something clearly. The work of resisting hierarchy has never been easy. People who challenge oppressive systems are often punished precisely because their courage exposes another way of living. And this becomes especially clear in the powerful story of Chanel Miller. For years, the general public did not know Chanel Miller by her actual name. She was known as Emily Doe during the trial against Brock Turner, the Stanford student-athlete who sexually assaulted her while she was unconscious behind a dumpster. What happened to her was horrific, and what happened after revealed how devastating the society that we live in is. Despite witness testimony, despite medical evidence, despite a guilty verdict, public conversation repeatedly centered Brock Turner's future instead of Chanel Miller's humanity. People worried about his swimming career, his education, his lost opportunities, his reputation. His father even described prison as a steep price to pay for 20 minutes of action. And once again, the hierarchy became painfully visible. Whose future mattered? Whose suffering mattered? Whose humanity was protected? And whose pain was treated as secondary? The system did not only fail Chanel Miller, it attempted to reduce her, to make her anonymous, to flatten her, to turn her into a star athlete's mistake instead of a full human being with a life, a voice, a family, a history, a future, and a self beyond what had been done to her. And this is one of the ways those who maintain oppressive systems uphold them, not only through violence itself, but through erasure afterward, as well as through institutional protection for those doing the harm. Through trying to make survivors feel small, ashamed, disposable, unbelievable, replaceable, silenced. But Chanel Miller refused that reduction. She publicly reclaimed her identity, her face, her story. She published Know My Name, a title that in and of itself is an act of resistance. It says, I am more than what was done to me. I am more than the role you assigned to me. I am still here. And what makes her story especially important is that she did not only speak for herself, her words created recognition for millions of others. People saw themselves in her pain, in her exhaustion, in her confusion, in her fear, and in the impossible task of trying to remain human inside systems that repeatedly dehumanize women while protecting the futures of men. And as an Asian American woman, her story also exists within a longer history of racialized and gendered stereotypes that have shaped how Asian women are viewed in the United States. Submissive, hypersexualized, fetishized, and available for male projection and control. These narratives are not harmless. They shape whose pain is taken seriously, whose boundaries are respected, and whose suffering is minimized or dismissed. And what I want us to hold on to today is this. The cruelty Chanel Miller faced was real. The public scrutiny was real. The imbalance of power was real, and still, she refused disappearance. That refusal matters because oppressive systems often rely on convincing people that survival requires silence, that speaking will cost too much, that honesty will destroy them, that challenging hierarchy is hopeless, that fear should keep people small. Audre Lorde once wrote that many of us were never meant to survive inside the mouth of this dragon called America. And she reminded us that silence does not actually protect us. The machine harms people whether they speak or not. So the question becomes, what happens when people decide to speak anyway? What happens when people transform fear into language? That is what Chanel Miller did. The system tried to turn her into a cautionary tale. Instead, she became proof that people can fight erasure by refusing to disappear. And that matters deeply before we move forward together. Because if we are going to build lives rooted in truth, care, liberation, and accompaniment, we must first understand this clearly. The work will not always feel safe. The backlash will be real. The consequences will be real. But history keeps moving because people continue choosing courage anyway. Here are your reflection questions for today. Where have you been taught to make yourselves smaller in order to survive? What truths, identities, or experiences have you felt pressure to hide? And what becomes possible when people refuse to disappear, even inside systems designed to erase them? Thank you for joining me today, and I'll be back soon.